And welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Delvecchio here, specializing in life transitions, elder care planning, and the senior living industry.
And I'm Corrie Sirota, clinical social worker and author of Someone Died, Now What? Welcome to our segment called Helping Moms and Dads. We are aimed to provide guidance and support to the sandwich generation. We're always offering some interesting and knowledgeable guests who are covering a huge array of topics and which will help families cope with the challenge of the aging process. Matt, what's up for this week?
Yeah, before that, and then we're going to tie all this in together, Corrie, we can't forget about the clocks tonight, right? And falling back. And so just a reminder, I'm sure if everyone's seen the reminders or read about it, but it's our duty to remind you as well. Thus the segue, Corrie, talk about falling. November is Fall Prevention Month. And, falls are the leading cause of injury-related hospitalizations among Canadian older adults. 20 to 30% of older adults fall each year. And the Canadian Institute for Health Information shows that 4 out of 5 hospitalizations involving seniors were caused by falls. So to talk more about this, we have Marguerite Oberle-Thomas, a fall prevention content expert. She's a consultant and liaison for Fall Prevention Community of Practice for a great organization called Parachute, which we're going to hear a little more about. And we also have Audrey Otter, a 90-year-old advocate and a volunteer for fall prevention who has had a couple of falls herself. Audrey and Marguerite, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello to both of you. Thank you for doing this. I've had the opportunity to talk to both of you, and so glad you're able to really spread the word about a very serious issue that affects many older adults. And Marguerite, in my introduction, I talked about Parachute. Can you give us a little briefing on what is Parachute?
Actually, Matt, Parachute is the national injury prevention charity that focuses on priority areas related to unintentional injuries that occur at home, at play, and on the road. Areas of concern cover motor vehicle collisions, poisoning, drowning, and fall prevention. Parachute sponsors our fall prevention community of practice.
That's a very huge variety of different types of things, and I want to hear more about that, but I got to go to Audrey. Audrey, you've had a few falls. Matt mentioned it earlier, and now you've become a real advocate of fall prevention. So maybe let's start with, I'm sorry to bring you back there, but can you tell us about some of your worst falls?
Oh, yes. I did have a fall due to prescription medication. It had leached most of the sodium from my system. I was getting up from a chair and my body spasmed. I had no control and fell backwards. I wear a medical alert, and within a few seconds, a voice from my call box was asking if I was on the floor and did I need help. Well, I wasn't hurt, but I am disabled and needed help to get up. Within about 10 minutes, paramedics were checking me over. They asked about medication, and I was able to tell them there was a complete list on the fridge door.
Amazing. Well prepared. That's 90-year-old Audrey Otter here on Life Unrehearsed with Matt and Corrie. It's Fall Prevention Month, and we wanted to bring some awareness to which can be devastating for not just seniors, for all people, but particularly older adults. And Audrey, I want to continue along. You had this horrific experience, yet you've turned it around to benefit others. Can you give us an idea of some of the advocacy work you're doing? And I understand you even did some road shows, if I'm correct.
Yes, Matt. After a long illness, my husband passed away in 2003. I was devastated. I wanted to get out into the community to distract me from grief. I saw an ad looking for volunteers to act in Stay on Your Feet plays and applied. In January of 2004, I met Marguerite. I also met Ted Kodak, who was grieving the loss of his wife. We found ourselves the rather surprised stars of a love story, with the main characters slipping and falling in 17 different ways. We went on to perform the play 136 times for 6 years, reaching 4,900 people. We learned in long-term care homes just how many were there because of a fall, and we became passionate with our appeals to younger audiences to avoid falls.
I love that story. I love that you did that, and it's so heartwarming. And God bless you for doing that. I'm going to flip it back to Marguerite. What are some of the more common reasons people fall? If you can list a few.
Well, one of the biggest reasons is that we're always in a hurry. Every time there's a fall, we can think back about what we did and why we fell. Looking back, we do see risk factors that could have been avoided. Injuries are best avoided by having strong bones and muscles. That involves us doing exercises for strength, balance, and flexibility, and that helps us to avoid those injuries. Not all falls result in injuries, but that's what we don't want. It helps a lot if we wear good footwear, keep our homes and outdoors clutter-free, and use walking aids if we need them. Also, we need to report any public areas where we see a hazard.
You know, Marguerite, I want to expand a little bit more. We heard from Audrey where she mentioned lightheadedness and could have been due to medication issues. You just talked about, one of the reasons for falling was hurrying. We've got perhaps medication, not taking the right meds at the right time. What are some of the reasons? I thought Audrey rattled. I think in her place she was saying 17 reasons. Yeah. Can you rattle off a few more of the reasons, Marguerite?
I would really be happy to. Well, we can talk about safe winter walking because snow and cold are just around the corner. And if you Google the website Rate My Treads, which is sponsored through the University Health Network in Toronto and the lab there, that's all one word. That gives you really good information on boots. And it might surprise you to learn that women's fashion boots all suck. They're horrible. Men's can be somewhat better.
Right.
But I want to talk about going out for that walk. Now, before you go out, Matt, have a drink. I do mean a drink of water, I don't mean that whiskey or wine.
Marguerite, you had me going there.
Yeah. I know, and that helps you to avoid dehydration, and it also helps if take a water bottle with you so you can take sips, and you may want to look at where there's washrooms and benches along the way if you want to have a rest. Tell someone where you're going and when you'll be back so people know to expect you. Plot your journey and report any hazards that you find to the municipality. Wear layers so you can accommodate for feeling warmer as you walk. If you wear transition glasses, be sure to take the time for your eyes to accommodate to the change in brightness going from inside to outside and vice versa. But before you even start, back to your medications, think about them, and if there are any that cause drowsiness, dizziness, or muscle weakness, or that interact with that wine or whiskey that you might enjoy or not. All Ontario residents who take 3 or more prescriptions are entitled to MedCheck, which is a review of your medication.
Il reste 10 secondes d'enregistrement. Oh.
Go ahead, Marguerite. Go ahead. Oh, we might have lost
your medication.
Oh,
there we go.
And how your medication.
Pour envoyer le message enregistré, faites le 1. Pour envoyer le message.
Sorry, Marguerite. We're going to have to cut you off because we actually do have to head out to traffic, and we're going to correct that technical error. But when we come back, we're going to bring Audrey back into the interview because you mentioned, Audrey, about medical alerts, how it literally saved your life. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, and Marguerite's going to continue about some of the other prevention methods we could use. But first, we have to head out to the CJAD Traffic Center. We're going to hear from Jill Fitzgerald.
Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, helping you navigate home care and senior residences.
We're talking with Marguerite Oberle-Thomas, a fall prevention content expert, consultant and liaison for Fall Prevention Community of Practice. This is a wonderful organization called Parachute that she is involved with. And we're also talking with Audrey Otter, a 90-year-old advocate and volunteer for fall prevention, who's actually had a couple of falls herself. So she is a wealth of knowledge. I wanted to mention something as we're talking about ways in which, or hazards in which people fall. I can recall this, and if my parents are listening, they will so appreciate this one. My grandmother used to have all these rugs and all these, I don't know, they were plastic to prevent or to protect the carpets. And oh my gosh, did I watch her trip every single time she would pass by one of those. I'm assuming this is one of those hazards?
That is absolutely one of those hazards. Thank you for that. I'd like to go back to what we were talking about, the medications, because that is so important, the med check. And especially if your medications weren't quite right and you did come across one of those drugs, it could be nasty. Mm-hmm. MedCheck is a program offered by Ontario pharmacists, and it is available for everyone. You don't have to be over 65, and they will review your medications at no cost and how they interact with each other. And that health practice plus vision and hearing, they all help you to avoid injuries from falls.
Yeah, very important, Margaret. I'm glad you brought that up. We do that in Quebec as well, and many pharmacists will do these med checks as well. So important. And as it happened to Audrey, it was a medication issue related to her really devastating fall, Audrey. I want to talk a little bit more about that because there was a chance that it was a severe cut and you were bleeding out and you had a medical alert system. So could you please tell us a little bit more about the importance of medical alert systems?
Well, yes. I had just stepped out of the shower and started to dry myself, and a vein in my inner ankle must have had a weak spot, and I was jetting blood. Okay. I got out some large Band-Aids, but I was wet. My ankle was slippery with blood, so I couldn't apply any pressure. And after a few attempts to stem the flow, I pressed the call button, and at the same time I slipped on the blood and fell. The call centre assured me help was on the way and stayed online. I'm in a seniors apartment, part of a large 3-building complex. The paramedics had not been to this complex before and went to the wrong buildings. By the time they got to me, I had lost a lot of blood, and I was very weak, and I couldn't stand. But they got me up, took me to the hospital, where I had a transfusion. But without that medical alert, I would have died. And I'm appealing now to any older listeners living alone, please invest in a medical alert.
Well, it makes so much sense, and I hear you, and I hope my folks, who I love dearly, are hearing you as well. You talked about actually having this horrible incident happen in a bathroom. I understand bathrooms are like also really very dangerous areas or have a lot of potential fall locations. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. They're slippery. There's places in the tub that you should have grab bars around the toilet. It is one of the worst in the home. And when I talk about decluttering your home, I also mean what you're talking about, that you eliminate the slippery rugs, slippery places anywhere in the home.
Yeah, very, very good points. Listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt and Corrie. November is Fall Prevention Month, and we're talking with fall prevention advocates Marguerite Oberle-Thomas and Audrey Otter. Marguerite, we had the opportunity to talk before the interview, and you kind of threw me for a curveball here, saying, Matt, I absolutely want to talk about oral health. And my response was, well, Marguerite, we're talking about fall prevention. And she goes, exactly. So, Marguerite, here's the floor. Here's your soapbox. And what is the connection between oral health and fall prevention?
Thank you so much. Oral health is important, as are all good general health practices. But without good oral health, it's difficult to chew and enjoy food and have good nutrition. Without good nutrition, it's difficult to have the strength and energy to exercise and keep those muscles and bones as strong as possible. We need really good food every day, and you just can't chew it if your mouth is sore. Muscle wasting does happen to all of us as we grow older, but we can certainly slow it down by eating well and exercising. Poor nutrition and lack of exercise definitely leads to frailty, and frailty makes us much more prone to injuries from falls.
So that's really interesting to me, the major connection between all of these pieces that I don't think I would have really recognized. So oral health is important. What other things? You mentioned hydration. You were saying when you go out, make sure you're hydrated. Like you said, make sure you drink.
Absolutely. Make sure that you drink lots of water. And like something that's very prominent with older adults is bladder control. And in order to go for a walk, to know where the washrooms are and to know what you might need going forward, because you have to be dehydrated. A lot of people will not drink at night because they don't want to get up in the night, and that's not a good practice. You do need to be dehydrated well during the day, and also have hydration at night.
So important. Now, Audrey, I want to bring you back into this. And I have to say, Audrey, we did have permission, by the way, Corrie, to mention that Audrey is 90 years old. And Audrey, maybe if you can make a little comment. When we asked you for permission, I just loved your answer. Could you share that with our listeners?
Well, yes, I am 90 years old, but Matt, only on the outside. On the inside, there's a 40-year-old woman that's absolutely incredulous that when she gets up in the morning, she's creeping around, almost bent in half, and she's going at the brisk rate of an elderly tortoise. She knacks the outer half all day long.
Audrey, you are really phenomenal. And I hear Marguerite snickering and laughing in the background. You make a great team. We're running out of time. We're going to be really quick, Audrey. I'm going to put you on the spot here. You mentioned you did these road shows, 136 road shows over 6 years. Is there, real quick, one that stands out the most when you're doing these advocacy road shows about fall prevention?
We did one at Shoppers Drug Mart. There were 500 people in the morning, 500 people in the afternoon, and they were all young people, variously in nursing and PSWs and so on, and they just hung on to every word. We were just so surprised. They hung on to every word.
You were the rock stars.
We were so glad that we could get that across to those young people so that they could get it across to the people that they were looking after.
Well, good.
And that is one. There were many that stood out.
Good on you for doing what you do, Marguerite. Likewise, we want to thank both of you for coming here on Life Unrehearsed here on a Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's Marguerite, just before we go off, you are with Parachute. So I'm assuming, just to look, if we want to find a little bit more information, we could look up Parachute. Is it parachute.ca? Is that it?
Parachute.ca is one website you can go to. Also, fallpreventionmonth.ca is another website, but also your local health units, your healthcare provider, and your pharmacist. And I want to say, if Audrey and I were both 20 years younger, maybe we could put the road shows back on, because we sure did have a good time.
All right. Well, thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's Marguerite Oberle-Thomas from Parachute, and Audrey Otter, a 90-year-old advocate and volunteer for fall prevention. Thank you for tuning in to Life Unrehearsed. As a reminder, for all your inquiries or assistance with life transitions, elder care planning, and the senior living industry, be my pleasure to help. Look us up at Lianas Senior Transition Support. Many thanks to our technical producer, Dan. You can listen to Life Unrehearsed here on CJAD 800 every Saturday at 3 p.m.